Being accused of racism can be completely scary. It feels like a moral failure. It feels like you're being accused of something awful, of something dirty. It could cost you a business opportunity or a long-term relationship or even your job when you are accused of racism. And it's more likely that you could be accused of racism than ever before. How you respond to the accusation will really make a difference in the long run, both for you and for the person that you're talking to. In this video, I'm giving you 6 responses, how to respond if you are accused of racism. But before we go there, I want to cover a few considerations. Because racism is cultural, because it's part of the backdrop of the country that we live in, everybody is racist or discriminating or incorrectly assuming about other people. It's just part of who we are as a community. Racism assumes superiority in some way and attributes behavior to the color of someone's skin or where they came from. And it also has built-in benefits within those assumptions. Without going down the rabbit hole of what racism is, we really need to deal with how you feel and how you can respond to these accusations in the most positive, forward-thinking way. The first thing that I don't want you to do is defend your intent, which means I didn't mean to hurt you. Because the reality is that if you hurt someone, the hurt is there regardless of whether you meant to do it or not. And if you're thinking about your intent, it means that you're thinking about yourself and you're not thinking about the pain you might have caused another person. Another thing that I don't want you to do is to start defining racism. This isn't a time to go into a dissertation about what this word actually means. It's pretty deep. I will tell you that I don't think that the only thing to avoid is saying the N-word or burning a cross in someone's front yard, that it's a little bit more complicated than that. But when you're in the moment where someone has presented to you an idea that you might have said or done something that could be considered racist, working to define what racism is at that moment is again a deflection of what you might have done. You're just trying to avoid responsibility. So save that dialogue for another time. A third thing that people do all the time and really doesn't help is trying to make it even, where you say, well, then that's reverse racism, or why don't you care in this situation? When you go through these responses, you're feeling bad. You feel like this isn't me. I don't want someone to think that way, or I don't want the consequences of something. And so you're going down the list and trying to put them on the defensive is not going to serve anyone. I can tell you personally, one of the worst experiences is when you do try to speak up and someone tells you that your perception is incorrect, that you are defining the situation incorrectly. So that means that you're going to deny that that person actually has that feeling, that observation, or that experience. What you really don't want is to put yourself in a place where you're the expert and you're going to define what racism is, what their feelings are, how they should respond to what you're saying. You're just going down a road that you can't win. So let's get into the things that you can do that could make a difference, that will build your understanding and the relationship with another person. The first thing that I want you to do is thank the person for speaking up. And here's why. If you are a person who's in the minority in any way, then you have been listening to conversations, watching movies, reading literature, participating in culture in general, and you've had to make decisions about whether or not it is helpful to you, beneficial to you, to speak up. And many times a person who's in the minority made a decision that it wasn't in their best interest to speak up. When you thank someone for speaking up, you create a sense of trust and you lower the anxiety in the conversation. The second thing that you need to do, and this can be very, very hard if your intent was positive, is you have to say, I'm sorry. Now, you're not saying I'm sorry for all the cultural racism, for all the events that have happened in the past. You are not saying you're sorry for all the things that someone has said to that person that were inappropriate. That's not what you're apologizing for. You're saying, I'm sorry that I hurt you. I'm sorry that I said something that's bothering you. I am sorry that I'm impacting you negatively. Just somehow acknowledge that you understand that your words and your actions have hurt them and that it matters to you. Now, before we jump to point 3, there's a little thing that you need to do, and that is ask permission. Because it's not the job of that person to educate you, even though they told you that you were racist. I know sometimes it doesn't make sense, but that's just the way it has to be. You have to imagine that that person of color or that person who's in the minority is often in this situation, and it can be exhausting and futile to always be in the teaching space. Hopefully that person wants to tell you more, but make sure that you ask permission. Can I ask you a few more questions? I don't want to do this again. Can I ask you a few questions? I want to learn more about what I'm saying and what I'm doing so I can make more of a positive impact. And when you ask permission, again, you are creating more and more goodwill that will not only last in that relationship, but will likely create ripples when they have future conversations with other people. So now we're on to a third response. And that is, if you get a chance, if you get permission to say, how does this make you feel? How does this impact you? When you said that statement, especially if you don't think that you're racist, then you didn't understand the impact that is connected to what the statement is. And you need to understand that so you can make adjustments in your own conversations, in your perspectives, in the way that you interact with other people. So when you're able to ask that question, how did that make you feel? Or how did that impact you? The next step is to sit back, be quiet, and let that person talk. Remember, you're not in a debate right now. What you need to understand is what it is that you did so that you can get rid of those offending words and actions and move on with other people who are in that similar situation with you. Another kind of question that you can ask is, what assumptions was I making? Like, where did I go wrong? What mistakes did I make? This is a deeper conversation where you have to be ready to see the flaws in the way that you see people. Because at the bottom of it, whether it is racism or a smaller microaggression, you've made an incorrect assumption or an incorrect association with a behavior or an observation and that group or that individual. And this person is trying to tell you, you've made a bad connection. If you really want to win in this game of becoming a better person in society and becoming a positive influence in society, that you understand where your bad connections are happening. When you get to the end game of this, you really are trying to become better. So you can, if you have permission, ask the person, how can I do better? Like, now that I know what the assumptions are that are incorrect, how can I phrase this? How can I communicate this or act in a way that doesn't hurt people down the road? If you don't have that permission or you don't have the time, the other option is to say, is there a place that I can go where I can learn more about this? Do you have any recommendations? Or you just go and you learn more. There's so much information out there about this sort of thing. And if you are willing, you'll be able to find exactly what you need. Here's what I know. As I was giving each suggestion of ways to respond, I'm asking you not to defend yourself. I'm asking you not to debate, to take the opposite side of this situation and look at a person as if they're the enemy. I know that when the conversation starts, it feels like there's battle lines that are drawn because you're being told that it's a possibility that you're racist. And the first thing that any normal person would want to do is clear their name. But this connection and healing that we need as a community takes self-control. It takes putting yourself aside and learning about others and stepping into a space of understanding so that you can benefit another person that's in your circle. To be honest, if you are able to respond this way, it's very unlikely that you'll be in a position where you're going to lose big opportunities. If you are in a position where you've lost some opportunities or you're on the verge of that, all the more reason to learn a new way of communicating. It's not going to work to not say anything. You'll never be able to get it right by picking through the minefield that is communicating with people who are different than you. But if you come with an open, vulnerable heart and you're willing to put aside some of the defensive tendencies that we all have and instead learn about other people, you'll just be a little bit stronger for the next conversation that you have with someone that is different than you.